All right, what is up? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video. It's been a minute since I've made any updates or anything on the progress with our big turbo GTD full engine build, as we did encounter a little bit of a setback a little while ago. For those of you that check on any of my community posts or anything on my actual YouTube page, I know a lot of people don't really ever see those and don't really even know that they exist. That bad boy over there, my engine block, actually got lost by the company that was doing the machining, and that turned into a whole big fiasco that we'll get into in a minute. But I wanted to do a quick breakdown on price for everything that I have in terms of performance upgrades for the TDI. So I'm gonna kind of go over every single piece that I have sitting here, and I just realized I'm missing one important bit, which I will put over with everything now. Just before I start putting the entire engine together, as we are just waiting for gaskets at this point, which isn't really a performance thing, but I'll go over the cost for those as well at the very end, because I know how much that all exactly cost shipped to my door. So obviously when you're doing a performance engine build, if you're doing something in a vehicle that currently has a running engine, in my case not really well running, but not running well, spare engine is a very, very, very important thing to have. So this is a 2-liter TDI CJAA block. There's the part identification number, but this is a spare engine that I got from a good friend of mine. Had about 120,000 kilometers on it. The one in my car has 80. It's very hard to find these engines spare locally where I live with lower mileage, as they do most of the time go forever and are pretty hard to kill. So this was about as good as we could get. So I actually ended up paying 800 Canadian dollars for the entire torn apart, well, not torn apart, but the entire engine with all its components and everything that are all just kind of like strewn all over the place, just to basically get it down to the bare engine block. So we have gone ahead and had the top of the block professionally decked, about 0.005 inches off the top, which works out to about 0.127 millimeter, as well as we've had the cylinders honed, and I don't know if you'll be able to tell with the lighting in here, freshly honed cylinders just for some new piston rings on our existing pistons. We are in fact using the OEM pistons, the piston heads that came out of this motor, on some upgraded rods that I'll show you in a second. Connecting rods, however, obviously are going to be getting replaced, because that is one of the downfalls of the CJAAs. They have weaker connecting rods. Piston heads are pretty okay. They don't go through tons of abuse, but these ones are in pretty good shape. No pitting, no weird spray pattern or anything on any of that stuff. But back to the engine itself. So it was, like I said, it was decked, it was honed, it was professionally jet washed, and that's about it. I believe all of that at the machine shop cost just over $400 Canadian. So I'll have a running total of how much everything costs so far going forward. And all of the stuff that you now see over here was all purchased through the lovely lads over at Darkside Developments in the UK. They are the absolute goats when it comes to building TDI stuff, so shout out to them. They've been working with me getting all this stuff sorted. Really nice guys. If you ever need anything, reach out to them. I won't drop specific names so that you don't go out harassing specific people for stuff, but all the guys over there are super awesome. Let them know that I sent you if you get in contact with any of them over email. But without rambling on too much, we'll start off with the most important part of this entire build, which are these bad boys right here. These are FCP Engineering connecting rods, high performance steel connecting rods. Not anything like super crazy, but if you do compare them to the stock ones, they are significantly beefier. They're not super light, not super heavy, but we're looking for just basically something that's going to be able to handle the massive amount of torque that the stock engine was making, which was almost 400 foot-pounds at the tire, which is insane. Those cost me 360 British pounds, so I'll do all the conversions and stuff because I don't know what exactly it all worked out to in Canadian dollars before conversion. So those are 360 British pounds for those guys. We've got 4 of them, obviously, because it's 4-cylinder. Next thing, which for me has become apparently more and more important, is we got ourselves a Darkside a Darkside oil cooler setup. This is a non-thermostatic setup, so it doesn't have a thermostat. This just basically goes in where the oil cooler, the stock one, is. So it goes on here, and then this screws in basically in line to where the oil filter is, and then it creates two AN lines that come off, go to the oil cooler. That does its thing. Reason we did this is just specifically from drag racing, hard street driving, and then the day that when we actually ended up killing the engine that's in the car right now, oil temperatures was something that was a major area of concern for me, because after 3 or 4 minutes of constantly being in boost, the oil pressure was really, really high. So we're adding not only a little bit of volume, but also actual airflow to an oil cooler, rather than it just sitting behind a hot radiator and a hot intercooler right up against a hot engine block. We're actually circulating it. We're gonna be putting it in one of the fog light bezels on the Golf R bumper. So hopefully that will turn into a really good upgrade for us to have. Along with hopefully a performance radiator that we'll be doing soon, that I'll be working with another sponsor on. And we will talk about that at a later date once it shows up. I also forgot to mention this is a 19 row cooler. That's the biggest one that they make, not intercooler, oil cooler, oil cooler, oil cooler. That's the biggest one they make. Yeah, oil cooler, price for that guy was 189 British pounds, and then the rod bearings themselves were 72 British pounds. The next portion is a lot more just mechanical stuff. So in the back here, you can see the big OEM Volkswagen Group box. That's just a timing belt kit. Obviously, whenever you do take an engine apart, it is best just to replace all the timing belt components as well as the water pump. So we have a metal impeller water pump that's going in, all new bolts, idlers, or roller, whatever you want to call it. That's all brand new. That whole kit, 230 British pounds as well for that. When you're doing, like I said, freshly machined engine, new piston rings. We just got Mahle piston rings. These guys for the full set was 90 British pounds. So you got those as well. Those are just stock 81 millimeter piston rings, because we haven't done any oversize work on any of the engine, so nothing super crazy there. Next set of bearings, obviously the main crankshaft bearings. So we've got a set of these guys. These were 36 British pounds, pretty cheap. Thrust bearings. These are the bearings that go in between the certain points on the crankshaft that basically stop from having crank walk. So if you know anything about Evos are notorious for having crank walk, to have catastrophic engine failures in the 4Gs. That's kind of like what helps prevent that, but also get all the spacing right. Like I said, those were 13 British pounds, super, super cheap. Some people say that you don't need to replace these, just do it. It's worth it for something that can cause catastrophic engine failure, so just do it. Next, we have the ARP head studs. So these bad boys, I'm not entirely sure how much these cost, because these were actually fully sponsored. So these guys are 260 euro or 260 British pounds from Darkside. No discounts or anything, so those are pretty expensive. But everything else, those were the accurate prices for what I've paid for everything so far. I do also have the stock injectors from this torn down engine sitting over here, just because I wanted to include that, because obviously this is a performance part that's already in the engine that will be going in the new one. So those are Bobby Singh bi-turbo TDI injectors that are also flow matched as well, which is even more work to do. I didn't actually pay for those, and I'm not entirely sure how much those cost. I'll do some digging, because I know a lot of people have asked how much and like where you can buy these injectors and all this stuff. So I'll do some digging, and I'll post a price on the screen for how much I find out similar or those exact injectors are worth. But that is that. We've also got the stock turbo sitting down here, and as you know, I do have a Darkside 2872 on my TDI, because it is a Malone stage 3 kit or stage 4 kit, and those guys straight from Darkside are 1670 GPB, so Great British Pound or whatever you want to call it, 1665 British pounds just for this turbo, and that's the guy that I got on my engine. And I believe the Malone stage 4 kit is 3250 just for 1756. So I think the price difference is about $500 more Canadian, so that works out to about 3750 for a 2872. So altogether, oh, and I also forgot to talk about assembly lube, obviously really important. I think this was like $9, so it doesn't really make that big of a dent in the grand scheme of how much money has been spent on this build so far. So I'll put the grand total for the entire cost of the build here on the screen now. I know so far it's probably not for the faint of heart to go this deep into a TDI when you could probably build a GTI that makes more power a lot easier. What does make this build super expensive is the fact that we've had to do obviously a complete engine teardown. Now I know the 2-liter EA 113s in the Golf Rs and the Mark V GTIs aren't super notorious for handling a lot of power, but neither are the first gen EA 888s. So once you start fighting massive amounts of torque, well, massive amounts of torque, such as what we're seeing having to do big rods like this, that's where you start running into blowing up engines and mechanical failure. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the big thing at this point. We're gonna start obviously assembling and hopefully assemble the engine all in the next TDI update video that you guys see, and we'll be back out at the racetrack pretty quick. I don't know how much more power we're gonna be able to squeeze out of the car without doing an extensive amount of head work, because at this point the limitation of how much power this engine can make is how well the head can flow. It has a massive turbo on it. It's got super strong bottom end. Once we're all put back together, we've got everything to prevent the engine from overheating and destroying bearings and warping heads again. Or we don't even know what happened to the other engine, but I'm just saying as a precaution, warping heads, that it would just be time to do a completely built head at that point, which the guys at Darkside will gladly take care of me, or take care for me. That's about it for the cost of everything. I also guess I have to tally the cost of the head gasket, which I think is $43 shipped to my door, plus the lower bearing kit, which is like the oil pump gasket, or not the lower bearing, the lower gasket kit, oil pump, oil cooler, all that fun goodies. I think it was like another $300 for everything else delivered to my door. So we'll just tack another $300 on the total, and we'll call that done, minus fluids and all the other goodies to get it all back in the car. But anyways, guys, I hope that puts a little perspective into the cost of what it takes to build a 2-liter TDI. This is just a CJAA. I know there is the CRUA and like a whole bunch of the CKRA, the weird twin turbo Passat engine and that kind of thing. So this is just a little Jetta Golf 2-liter TDI. Sorry if I seem as if I'm a little bit out of it. I actually do currently have the old Ronavirus. I feel perfectly fine. Like I have a little bit of a headache and then just a little stuffed up, but other than that, we're taking advantage of being at home and putting this engine together. So if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. We will be out back at the track, drag and circuit, kicking some people's butts pretty soon. So you guys won't want to miss that. Also, if you are here for Volkswagen content, I am also currently building a drift truck. That's getting LS swapped, so if you guys want to check that out, you can go over to my channel and check out my Sonoma build. That is super sweet. And then I will be having another build on the channel very soon that also involves going sideways, but it is with a European car, so you'll want to stay tuned for that. But anyways, guys, peace out. I will see you in the next video.